What's up, everybody? This is Ryan here. So, I thought I would do some unscripted rambling since it's the end of the year again. And basically, I'm going to try to do this in one take because I'm too lazy to do editing. And I've got two cats, so they might make cameos and otherwise try to disrupt things as cats like to do. So, the three things I'll be talking about are how things are going with me currently. Mainly like professionally speaking. I'll also be talking about why I stopped making content, and then I'll talk about what I might be doing in the future in terms of content and programming and stuff like that. So with regard to how things are doing with me, things are going really well. As some of you may know, about 3 years ago at this point, I finally got work as a professional mobile engineer or mobile developer. I would say my first job was more developing, whereas the job that I'm doing now has more kind of engineering aspects to it. So I worked for, I think it was about 10 or 11 months for one company, and the whole mobile team for that company ended up getting laid off. And then I got work with the company that I'm currently with, which is, they're called Silver Orange. And they've been a really good group of people to work with. A lot of great engineering talent. A very diverse group, and I mean that in a good way. And yeah, I've been learning a lot of things. Basically, I've been with them for approaching 2 years, and I've pretty much for the first year and a half mainly did Android development with a little bit of iOS stuff. Kind of didn't enjoy iOS very much. The general feeling I got about it is it's similar to Android. It's just the things that like suck for iOS and that are good for iOS are kind of a little bit different than the things that suck for Android and are good for Android. And I just wasn't super interested in it. Native iOS development for me, it kind of felt like solving a lot of the same problems that I was used to solving in Android, except now I need to do it in Xcode in a different language. I do like Swift. Xcode is a mixed bag of, I like to say it's kind of like a pile of dog shit that has some diamonds in it, and if you can make it through to those diamonds, like the debugger or the profiling tool, for example, if you can manage to get that deep into Xcode, wading through the Git integration, which is dog shit, then it's actually not the worst IDE. But yeah, I dabbled in iOS development, and then for actually the majority of this year, which is 2024, I think I've actually spent the majority of my time doing backend development, mainly in TypeScript. So that's been very fun. I've never done a lot of web development. I've never really done any backend development. So it was really cool to sort of support the mobile team as a backend developer, which is mainly what I ended up doing. And I got to develop some new backend features. And yeah, I had a really good time, and I'm going to continue to do that and ask to do more of that at work, because I'll probably keep doing Android development in some capacity for a couple years, but I have to admit, and I'm not going to go on a big ramble here, but Android just doesn't feel like it used to. And some things are better, and quite a lot of things about Android development are kind of worse than they used to be, interestingly. But I'm not going to go on a big ramble about that. So that's mainly what I've been working on professionally. And then just other general things. I live in Vancouver in an overpriced apartment. And I've been with my partner for, I guess we're in our 4th year. And thankfully she's a doctor, so between the two of our salaries, we can afford to live in Vancouver. And I'm not bragging. I honestly would rather live somewhere cheaper and invest more of my money in something other than rent, but she doesn't have the work options that I do. And just on that note, since I guess 2023, I have worked remotely. I've worked from home since then, and that's been really awesome because Ultimately, although I first sort of got started in programming, trying to be an entrepreneur, and there's a lot of details to unpack there, but I wanted to make a living from home. And here I am, nearly 10 years later. Actually, yeah, 10 years later, making a living from home. And that is awesome. It's not really the path that I thought I was going to be following, but hey, it worked out. And just the general report about how I'm doing is I'm actually doing really good. One annoying thing is I ended up getting de Quervain's Tenosynovitis. So basically the thumb tendons here, and then there's like a tendon sheath that wraps around those tendons, got inflamed when I was doing ring dips of all things. And I think also just in general, there's weird stuff that goes on. Like, look at how when I bend my thumb, I'm going to flex my thumb, watch my index finger, and I'm not doing that deliberately. See that? So, and that barely happens on this side. So this is my mouse hand. So I think there's just a whole bunch of weird screwed up stuff from spending most of my life in front of a computer gripping a keyboard or a mouse and a keyboard. So anyways, this has been a major pain in the ass injury. I basically haven't been able to do a push-up in a year. I've tried doing stuff like pull-ups occasionally, but it really sets it off. I don't grip dumbbells more than like 5 pounds, and I've only started doing that recently. But I've had all these, I basically bought a ton of wrist weights or ankle weights, and I actually, hilariously, because I've been forced to do like higher repetition, lower weight exercises for like a year now, I learned that if you do that, you can actually get some pretty serious gains. So, yeah, people say that isolation movements suck. Some people do, and well, that might be true, but you will build muscle if you just keep working out. So, anyways, still rehabbing this injury. It's getting better, but it took like 9 months before it started to get better, and I might still need to get surgery on it. So that's been annoying, but I've just focused on a lot of other things in terms of physical health and getting leaner and stuff like that. So overall, things are going really good. I'm keeping up with my meditation. I'm actually I joined a group that basically does research into meditation, and I've been doing a little bit of volunteer work with them, and it's been a really, really fun group of people to talk to, because it's a bunch of like sciencey geeks and doctors and researchers and stuff like that nerding out about meditation, which is definitely something I'm into. So that's basically everything that's kind of relevant in my personal life. And then, so why did I stop making content? It wasn't actually that I wanted to just stop making videos. The first part that stopped is I stopped creating what I'll call produced content. So produced content meaning stuff that I like make a video plan, record, edit, release, and all the fine details that go into that. I stopped doing that because it takes a lot of time. Anyone who hasn't done YouTube videos before or some kind of video production, you really have no idea how much time it takes. And when I see people like Florian from Coding and Flow cranking out like 10-hour-long tutorials, I really appreciate what he does there in terms of the time, because it's a full-time job. And the bottom line about why I stopped creating content is I was tired of being broke. Since I started YouTube in 2016, I had to work all kinds of random different jobs to pay the rent and to pay, like, to eat. And I basically started YouTube at the tail end of what I'll call its golden era. When I started YouTube, there were actually people who were like making a decent income on YouTube just from like ad revenue. And unfortunately, I could end up rambling too much about this, but my approach to YouTube was I just wanted to put all my effort into educational content and kind of just ignore social media and video production and things like that. And that was definitely to my detriment. The good news is, or the good side of that is, I gained the respect of some good people. but it took me a long time to get my act together when it came to YouTube, like playing the game, so to speak. And by the time I did, YouTube kind of sucked. Like, people just stopped making decent money from ad revenue. So anyways, I did do a tutorial with Stream Chat, and it was really great working with them. But other than that, I basically needed to get a job, and I was basically tired of, I had this skill set that I had built since 2014, which was like programming and mobile development, and I wasn't getting paid to apply that skill set. Even as late as, like, I think, 2020, I still had to pick up part-time work in a kitchen. And, it's not the worst way to make a living, but it's just not what I wanted to do. So around that time, I decided, okay, I'm going to actually really focus on my skills, focus on building things, and get hired. And I did. Now, once I finally got work as a professional software engineer full-time, or mobile engineer, what I realized is that I don't really have time to do anything else well. And that's kind of been a recurring thing in my life, is I'm not actually a high energy person. Have I went through periods in my life where I worked 10 to 12 hour days for like 30 days straight? Yeah, I've done that. But the incentives need to be very sufficient for me to do that. And it definitely takes a big toll on me. I'm not a high energy person. I'm a moderate energy person. And I tried multiple times to get back into live streaming and stuff like that. And what I found is the more I tried to create content, the more other parts of my life were suffering, whether it was like health or just having time for my relationship, or I never really let it make my work suffer, the thing that was actually paying me. But I just didn't have the time and energy to do a good enough job of it that I would be happy with. So I basically stopped. And I don't know. So getting into, that's sort of why I stopped making videos, is the incentives weren't there. I love teaching people. I love interacting with people on YouTube and various other platforms. I particularly love live streaming, but I just didn't have the time and energy to do it. And the return on investment was so low that it was like just not there. So moving forward, what are my plans in the future? Well, basically, I need to take a couple years to just continue to focus on my career. And I've also been getting into investing, and not investing in, I feel like this is where I'm supposed to, like, I've been getting into investing in stupid coin, link in the description. No, I'm not going to do that. I don't have anything to sell you. Never have. But I've just been investing my money in stocks and REITs and stuff like that. And I basically need to focus on that stuff for a couple years. The end goal is I do want to get back to teaching in some capacity. But for the time being, I have goals that I am still pursuing in terms of being a professional software engineer. I do feel like, and that's another tangent I could go down that I won't, I do think being a programmer, particularly as it works now, is a job that has a shelf life. I don't know how long it will be, whether it'll be 5 years, 10 years, but as a programmer who does use AI from time to time and isn't like anti-AI and isn't unreasonable about the capabilities of LLMs, not to say I'm an expert in it, but I do see how the game is changing. It's not changing quite as quickly as some people think, but let's just say it's a very interesting time to be a software engineer. So anyways, I plan on continuing down that path for a couple years, and that's most likely what I'll do. But slowly, eventually, I want to get back to making content. Is it going to be about programming? Maybe some of it, but to be honest, the better LLMs get, kind of the less value I see in even teaching programming. I do think it's valuable now, but again, like, is anyone really going to be caring in 20 years about my video explaining the fundamentals of software engineering? Probably a lot less than it did a couple years ago or now. So I probably will be focusing on content, which is a little more relevant to the way things are heading. So yeah, that was a vague answer, but that's basically where we're at. And it wouldn't be a Ryan Rambley video if I didn't end it with some unsolicited advice for the new year. So if you made it here this far, here's your unsolicited advice. A whole bunch of crap is going on in the world. I'm very lucky to be in a country which isn't currently at war. But we have a lot of our own stuff going on here in Canada. And so I'm not going to go on a big ramble here, but basically I just want to remind people who are watching, it's easy to sort of get wrapped up in just all the crap that's going on. And this isn't even going to apply to some of you people, because some of you watching this might actually be in a state that's at war. So I'm not trying to tell you anything. I just wish you, health and hopefully things go well. But for everyone else who isn't literally actively in a state of war, really what I just want to say is focus on the things that you have control over. And you've got to kind of separate all those thought bubbles and stories, whatever you want to call them, about politics and conflicts and tribal violence and all these sorts of things. And just remember that you're here in this place, and these are the things that are around you. These are the things that you have control over. And you're not going to be able to fix the world. If you want to be an activist, that's fine. If you want to help people, that's great. But understand you're not going to fix everything. That's just not how reality works. But you can affect, at least to some degree, your own mental health, your own physical health. You can be kind to the people around you. And that's just, the only thing worth focusing on right now when everything else is kind of going crazy. So that's my plan anyways. And it's worked for me. But again, I'm lucky. Pretty lucky. Canada is not the worst place to live, but it is a place. Anyways, I'd just like to wish you all a happy, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Unfortunately, I'm not great with other denominations of winter celebrations. But yeah, everything else, happy holidays and Happy New Year for those who aren't celebrating the Chinese New Year. Happy Chinese New Year if, you watch this in a couple months. But I just wish you all the best. And I will come back to making content at some point. I know most people don't care, but for those that do, I will be there eventually. It's just I realize that everything needs to be, not everything, most things need to be right in order for me to do what I want to do, which is to just eventually get back to teaching full-time and content creation full-time. But I don't have anyone else to rely on. So, and I realized I'm going to have to pay rent and food and expenses and all that stuff first and have that taken care of before I can make content creation full-time. Because, I spent about 8 years doing the starving entrepreneur thing, and it gets pretty old. That's all. Thank you for watching.